The research vessel Triton cuts silently through the inky blackness of the Pacific, miles above the crushing depths of the Mariana Trench. Inside the dimly lit control room, Dr. Aris Thorne, a man whose lifeblood was the ocean's mysteries, stared intently at the sonar readings. For weeks, his team had been mapping this unexplored section, chasing anomalies that whispered of unusual geological formations. "Anything, Maya?" Thorne asked, his voice a low rumble that barely disturbed the quiet hum of the ship's equipment. Maya Rodriguez, the lead sonar technician, leaned closer to her screen, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Another energy spike, Dr. Thorne, stronger than the previous ones, almost rhythmic." A collective murmur went through the small team. They had detected these strange energy pulses before, brief, almost fleeting signals that defied any known natural explanation. This one, however, was different. It lingered, a steady beat in the abyss. "Can we isolate the source?" Thorne pressed, his excitement palpable. "Working on it," Maya replied, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "It's coming from an extreme depth, deeper than we've ever recorded significant energy signatures before." Hours crawled by as the Triton positioned itself directly above the signal's origin. Finally, the remotely operated vehicle, ROV, Abyssal Explorer, was deployed, its powerful lights cutting through the perpetual darkness as it descended into the crushing pressure. On the monitor in the control room, the ROV's camera transmitted a grainy, monochrome view of the desolate seabed. Rocks and sediments stretched as far as the eye could see, an alien landscape untouched by sunlight. "Keep going," Thorne instructed, his gaze glued to the screen. "Let's see what's causing this whisper from the deep." As the Abyssal Explorer reached an unprecedented depth, the rhythmic energy pulses grew stronger, almost resonating through the hull of the Triton above. And then, on the ROV's feed, something impossible began to take shape in the beam of its lights. It wasn't a geological formation. It was structure. Vast, geometric, and undeniably artificial. A stunned silence fell over the control room. Thorne could feel his heart pounding in his chest. This wasn't just an anomaly. It was something else. Something that shouldn't be there. Suddenly, the ROV's video feed flickered and the rhythmic pulsing stopped abruptly. "Maya, what happened?" Thorne exclaimed. "Lost connection, Doctor. The signal just died." Before anyone could react, a new, much larger contact appeared on the Triton's sonar. It was moving fast, rising from the depths towards them, and it wasn't one of theirs. A klaxon alarm blared through the Triton, a jarring sound that shattered the tense atmosphere in the control room. On the main sonar screen, the unidentified contact was now terrifyingly close, a massive, sleek shape ascending with impossible speed. It was a submarine, but unlike any design Aris Thorne had ever seen. It was perfectly silent, a ghost in the water, and its profile was angular and aggressive. "They're hailing us," a communications officer shouted over the alarm. "Standard military channel. They're ordering us to cut engines and prepare for boarding." "By whose authority?" Thorne demanded, his mind reeling. They were in international waters. No nation had the right to simply board their vessel. "They say they're from the Naval Deepwater Operations Command," the officer replied, his voice laced with confusion. "I've never heard of them." There was no choice. The submarine surfaced less than 100 yards from the Triton, a colossal black behemoth dripping with seawater under the pale moonlight. It had no visible markings, no flag, just a smooth, obsidian hull that seemed to absorb the light around it. A heavily armed boarding party, clad in black tactical gear with no insignia, stormed the Triton with chilling efficiency. They weren't aggressive, but their movements were precise and uncompromising. The crew was herded into the mess hall, their personal devices confiscated. Aris Thorne, as the expedition leader, was escorted back to the control room. A tall, severe-looking man in a crisp, unmarked naval uniform was waiting for him. His eyes were cold and analytical. "Dr. Thorne," the man said, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight of command. "I am Commander Valerius. Your research expedition is over. This vessel and all its data are now under my jurisdiction." "Jurisdiction? What jurisdiction? This is a civilian research vessel." Aris protested, his initial shock turning to anger. Valerius simply gestured to the blank sonar screen. "You were transmitting a live feed of your ROV's discovery, a discovery you were not authorized to make." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You have trespassed into a matter of national security of the highest level." Before Aris could argue further, one of Valerius's men approached, holding a data tablet. He showed the screen to the commander. "Sir, the object, it's gone." Valerius's cold demeanor flickered for a fraction of a second. He turned his gaze from Aris to the deep-water sonar display, which now showed nothing but the empty, silent abyss where the impossible structure had been just an hour before. "Gone?" Valerius repeated, a dangerous edge to his voice. "Objects of that size do not simply vanish." The silent submarine, the secret government agency, the disappearing alien structure. Aris Thorne was no longer a scientist on a voyage of discovery. He was a prisoner in a conspiracy that was deeper and darker than the trench itself. And whatever was hiding in those depths was now aware that it had been seen. The journey on the silent submarine was short and disorienting. There were no windows, only the low hum of an unknown propulsion system. Aris and his crew, including a terrified Maya, were led through sterile corridors to a debriefing room. When the doors sealed behind them, a large screen on the wall flickered to life, showing not a view of the ocean, but the inside of a massive underwater complex. "Welcome to U.S. Naval Deepwater Operations Command Station 7, designation Tartarus," Commander Valerius's voice announced from a hidden speaker. "You are currently 2.5 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific. For you, this is now the entire world." The view on the screen shifted, showing a sprawling network of interconnected domes and tunnels, illuminated by powerful floodlights that carved a city out of the eternal night of the abyss. Strange, small submersibles darted between structures like metallic fish. It was a secret, impossible city hidden from humanity. This facility was built over 50 years ago for a single purpose: to listen, to watch, and to ensure that whatever is down here stays down here. Aris looked at the faces of his crew. Their initial anger had been replaced by a chilling awe and a dawning, terrifying realization. They hadn't just stumbled upon a military secret. They had fallen into a hidden world order, a conspiracy so deep it was literally buried at the bottom of the ocean. They were prisoners of a silent war they never knew existed. Commander Valerius finally appeared in person, entering the debriefing room with 2 armed guards. He placed a heavy metal-bound tablet on the table. "The object you detected," he began, his tone all business. "We call it a siren. Yours is the 4th research vessel to stumble upon one in the last 60 years. The others were less fortunate." He tapped the screen, and a grainy black-and-white image appeared. It showed a similar structure to the one Aris had seen, but this one was covered in what looked like organic, pulsating growths. These things are not static. They appear, they broadcast a signal for a time, and then they vanish. The signals are complex, mathematical, beautiful, and utterly alien. We believe they're not just beacons, they're invitations, and we have no idea who or what they are inviting. Maya, unable to stay silent, asked, "So you just hide it? Why not tell the world? Pool our resources to understand it?" Valerius gave her a cold, pitying look. "Because, Ms. Rodriguez, the last time a civilization..."
The discovery of the star map sent shockwaves through the command structure of Tartarus. For the first time, they had a tangible clue about the enemy's origin. But this breakthrough was immediately overshadowed by a new, more urgent crisis. "It's back," a sonar operator announced, his voice tight with panic. "The siren, it's active again." On the main tactical display, a red icon blinked into existence. It was hundreds of miles from its last known position, confirming Valerius's theory that the objects could move. But there was something else. A second, smaller contact appeared near the siren, a faint, almost biological signature. "What is that?" Valerius demanded, pointing at the new signature. "Is it one of ours?" "Negative, Commander. The signature is wrong. It doesn't match any known submersible or any known marine life form, for that matter. It's pulsing, like a heartbeat." Aris stared at the screen, a chilling theory forming in his mind. "It's not a ship," he said, his voice low. "The siren isn't just a beacon. It's a docking station. And something just arrived." The heartbeat on the screen pulsed faster, the biological signature moving away from the siren and heading slowly, methodically, towards the coastline of the United States. It was no longer just a cold war fought with signals and secrets. The enemy had just put a soldier on the board. A patrol had begun. There was only one option: to see what they were dealing with. Valerius mobilized his best asset, the Hades, the same silent, deadly submersible that had intercepted the Triton. But this time, Aris was not a prisoner. He was a consultant, brought into the Hades' advanced control room. He, Maya, and Valerius would witness the encounter from the relative safety of the most advanced submersible ever built. They descended into the crushing blackness, tracking the biological signature. As they drew closer, the sonar began to paint a picture that defied belief. The entity was colossal, larger than a blue whale, a biomechanical nightmare of chitinous plates and writhing tentacles and pulsing bioluminescent organs. It moved with a silent, predatory grace, a limbing warship patrolling the abyssal plain. "Sweet Mother of God," the pilot whispered, his voice trembling. The entity seemed to be following the ocean floor, its massive form gliding over underwater canyons and ridges. It was interacting with the siren, which had re-emerged from its cloaked state. A beam of faint blue light connected the living creature to the inert structure, a visible transfer of energy or data. "It's communicating with it," Maya said, her scientific curiosity warring with primal fear. "Or refueling." Aris watched, mesmerized and horrified. "This isn't a scout. It's a guardian, a sentinel. It's protecting the siren, ensuring the gateway remains open." They were watching a silent alien ritual that had been playing out in Earth's deepest oceans for centuries, and they had just trespassed on holy ground. The awe in the Hades control room turned to ice-cold terror in an instant. The Leviathan stopped its communion with the siren. Its bioluminescent organs, once pulsing rhythmically, now flared with an angry, intense red. Its massive, featureless head swiveled slowly, impossibly, in the crushing pressure, to face the hidden submersible. It had seen them. "How?" the pilot stammered. We're running silent. There's no way it could detect us." "It doesn't use sonar," Eris said, a horrifying realization dawning on him. "It's not looking. It's feeling." Before Valerius could give the order to retreat, it happened. There was no explosion, no torpedo, no sound. There was only a flash of pure white light from the creature's head. And then, pain. An excruciating psychic scream tore through the minds of every person on the submarine. It was a wave of pure agony and ancient alien fury. The control panels shorted out in a shower of sparks, the lights flickered and died, and the crew collapsed, clutching their heads in agony. Eris felt a pressure in his skull so intense he thought it would crack open, his vision swimming with impossible geometric shapes and the deafening sound of a billion whispers. The Hades went dead in the water, a powerless metal coffin sinking slowly in the abyss, its crew incapacitated by an enemy that attacked not their ship, but their minds. Agony slowly gave way to a throbbing, disorienting headache. Eris was the first to stir, his vision blurred by the pulsing red emergency lights. The Hades was adrift, its primary systems fried by the Leviathan's psychic blast. They were blind, powerless, and being hunted. "Status report," Valerius barked, forcing himself to his feet, his military training overriding the pain. "No main power," the pilot croaked from the floor. "Life support is on battery, but we can't move. We can't see." Outside, in the crushing dark, the Leviathan circled them like a shark. They couldn't see it, but they could feel it. A low, constant psychic pressure emanated from the creature, a chilling presence that gnawed at the edges of their sanity. It was Eris who provided the spark of hope. The attack, was a wave of energy, he reasoned, his scientific mind piecing together the nightmare. It overloaded the primary electrical conduits. But the analog systems, the manual overrides, they might still work if we can bypass the fried digital controllers. It was a desperate gamble. Under Valerius's command, the surviving crew, including a surprisingly resilient Maya, worked frantically in the claustrophobic confines of the submarine. They became a team born of pure necessity, pulling up deck plates and rerouting cable bands by hand, using Eris's knowledge of energy systems to create a crude but functional bypass. Every creak of the hull, every shadow in the dim red light sent fresh waves of fear through the crew. The Leviathan was toying with them, occasionally bumping against the hull with a deep, resonant thud that vibrated through their bones, a reminder that it was still there, waiting. Their survival now depended not on advanced weaponry, but on basic engineering and sheer will. With a groaning shudder, the manual systems came online. The Hades had a flicker of power, enough for minimal propulsion and basic navigation. "It's working!" he yelled, his voice a mix of relief and disbelief. "I have thrust control!" "Get us out of here! Full power! Now!" Valerius commanded. The submarine lurched forward, a wounded beast fleeing into the darkness. But the Leviathan was not done with them. As the Hades began its ascent, the psychic pressure intensified tenfold. This time, however, it wasn't a blanket attack. It was a focused, piercing scream of energy directed not at them, but upwards, past them. On one of the few functioning sensor screens, Eris saw it. The siren, the alien structure on the sea floor, began to glow with an incandescent, blinding light. It was channeling the Leviathan's rage, amplifying it and shaping it into a tight beam transmission, a weaponized signal. "It's not trying to stop us," Maya said, her eyes fixed on the energy readings which were climbing to impossible levels. "It's using us. It's using our escape path to aim." The signal shot past our submarine, a silent spear of energy racing towards the surface. Valerius stared at the trajectory projection on the tactical map, his face pale. The beam was not aimed at the empty expanse of the Pacific, nor was it aimed at the stars. It was on a direct course for the west coast of the United States, targeting the dense, sprawling metropolis of Los Angeles. They had escaped the monster, but in doing so, they had led its scream directly to a city of millions. The silent war was about to go public in the most catastrophic way imaginable.